So, good afternoon to everyone. So, I guess you had a very good lunch and very interesting topic now on application security and responding to the threats that we have. And I have my esteemed panelist, experienced guys in like day and night talking about threats, vulnerabilities, risks. Okay, so I'll start with the some questions and give you some background on what we will be discussing here. So I'll move to Prajit. Okay. So yeah. So most of the times the information security. So I'm talking from an organization point of view. Most of the times the information security starts with classification of the assets or information. Okay, and this is very limited role or the department which plays these kind of classification roles are risks or finance or compliance team. So other than this classification of the information, what do you think would be the other key aspects which will enable everybody to participate and adapt to a security culture in the organization?
Yeah, hello. Okay, great. I think it's a very important question because we are talking about security culture, and it's one of the most important thing in the organization. And October being the Security Awareness Month, I think it's a very good question to start with. One of the core fundamentals that I believe in is security is everyone's responsibility. And that is something that I've also learned from my past experiences as well. Now, by saying that, I also believe that it's not just the employees, but it also extends to the your users or customers as well. And we have seen that in our real life as well, like the banks sending us all those SMS, OTPs saying that never reveal your information. So that is also one part of the security awareness, and that's a good initiative. So that's why I believe that security is everyone's responsibility. Everyone should play a role in that. At the same time, we need to extend that to our users and customers. Now, by saying that, from my experience, I have seen two aspects which I would like to add on as well. What I've seen is at some places, users can be categorized as an asset, where users actually give out a lot of information, how to report your security, any suspicious events, phishing, so on and so forth. But at the same time, we can also see users as a liability, that if they click on any link, then again the company can go down or things like that. So I guess based on that perspective, we kind of define our entire security awareness program, and that really kind of makes how we define the culture as well. One of the things that I've also seen in one of the clients that I've worked, there are punitive actions that have been taken, when you click on some links and so on and so forth, and because of, let's say, a system got compromised. But what I have seen that day while doing that incident investigation is that creates a fear of environment within the users. And I feel maybe we need to take a step back. Again, this is just my personal opinion. Maybe we need to kind of create some more of a reward and interesting program. I've seen one client celebrating during the October month, where there are a lot of games for the entire day for the users to be more interactive. And there were a lot of competition. Of course, we were not involved. They were giving Alexa. I really wanted that, but that was like 2-3 years ago. So that rewards program is also very important to kind of keep motivated. And by that note, I really want to quote one of my mentor. Once he told me that, if you need to teach a child, the child can be beaten, or you can use motivation. And that is what I would kind of align over here, because it all depends how you structure your program. The why element, that is reasoning, is also very important, that we try to explain our employees on why we are doing it, how and what is the impact of it. So I guess these would be my perspective on the security culture, to kind of make it more broader and make everyone kind of involved in.
Yeah, that's really awesome answer, because from phishing, the phishing is the weakest link. So, the employee clicks a link and poof, everything. So on this same terms, I would like to ask Dharmesh, see from studies or from the experience that we have seen, Okay, we have fabulous information security policies, we have fabulous compliance policies, we have user experience policies, okay, but still the insider threat tops the list, okay, and and because of the employees' risky behavior, like Prajit rightly said, if he compromises knowingly, unknowingly the organization infrastructure. So Dharmesh, so how the organization can balance between the organization commitment and the employee security awareness? So and kind of whose risk is it anyway?
All right. Good afternoon, all. Eventually, I just want to put a context before I, just express my response. So we've been doing cybersecurity awareness since last maybe more than 10, 15 years. And the maturity differs from organization to organization, as simple as that. Now, when there is regulations coming in picture, out of compulsion, the organization would push across for them. I've seen that in last almost 15, 20 years. Now, since last 10 years, I've changed my professional career from industry, from financial institutions to manufacturing, core manufacturing, and then conglomerate sort of environment where there are multiple line of businesses. So I've seen that, when you're into financial or some regulated industry, you have a big support of compliances, right? So then out of compliance, the employee tends to adhere to the security program, a lot of stuff. Eventually, in the other side of the industries where they are not that regulated, security awareness is being taken just as, one more additional program, maybe from IT or, the sort of, verticals which come across. Now, that's where the catch is. When you have regulation, when you have a big brother sitting somewhere, you will adhere. When you don't have any big brother, and then when the top-down approach is not that, stringent, then it's everybody's, why do we say security is everybody's responsibility? It's also up to everybody's own mercy. Do we need to follow? Do we need to adhere? Or do we need to ignore? But thanks to the very vibrant landscape of security, which in the last 5 years, we have seen a lot of threats, a lot of exploits, a lot of breaches coming in picture, and people have been knowing, yes, Uber also hacked. This organization hacked. Yes, has something got to do with us as well. Tomorrow my mobile will get hacked. And there are a lot of, new avenues which the employees, finally all employees are personal individuals, They will also go back to home and they will see, some news by themselves. And there are some lot of, entertainment web series which have come across for cybersecurity threats and hacks. So eventually, awareness is going on its pace, right? Now, the vibrations in the industry, the matter of incidents, breaches, have also elevated to the acceptance of all individuals who also happen to be our employees. They accepted now that yes, this can happen any point of time now. It's not that something, we're busy taking as an awareness program. Now, this is what I've personally seen across. And I always quote in my training classes within my organization that, boss, this is not something which, as a part of organization, we are trying to represent something and we are trying to train you across. You go to your home, you take your mobile or you have your smart TV, anything can be exploited, anything can be hacked across. In your society, if you're living in your home and tomorrow and your neighbor, some hacker would come, as simple as that, you are all your honeypots, you're all your testing clients for him. He will first of all test on the neighbors and then he will execute very precisely on the targets which he will think about for. So this is a real example. They will always, we will try to make across such things, and this will really sensitize the organization, the employees. They will actually feel the fact that yes, they are all a target any point of time, and they would, and eventually when the sensitization is right, rightly induced in the employees, then it overall boils down to the organization maturity level. So this is what I've seen there. Now even with respect to insider threats which you said, Amit, I have seen there are distinctly two type of insiders. One who do unintentionally, he or she would not know whether he is trying to or she is trying to do something willfully wrong, and that's a gap where cybersecurity awareness or some sort of training would suffice it. However, the dangerous part is the one who is doing something intentionally, and the awareness would absolutely make no difference on him or her. That is where technology will come in place, and technology will help us out. See, it's all about monitoring, vigilance, surveillance, and those things. When we are all humans, right? I mean, we can fool ourselves, each other. But technology is something will always catch hold of such areas. So I've seen this very practically. When there are really smart people, they will always bypass human elements. But then on top of that, when you have a good amount of technology in terms of surveillance, and anything monitoring which you do across, there are a lot of such things, we will come across in today's session, how do we do that across. But this is where it will help us out, to trap the real insider, which is being prevailing in the industry now, and then this will get more complex and more dangerous going forward for. This is my perspective, Amit. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Dharmesh. So you basically, it's security awareness, I mean, from the employee point of view, and a security aware technology which can be deployed. We can then balance the goals of organization. Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Dharmesh. Now from
Ahmed, I just want to add one point,
Yes.
one more thing. This is again, as a part of my experience, we also have to see the awareness program from the employee's perspective. See, when we ourselves go to airports, and when we see that there are the frisking level, and one or two security, gates has been increased by the authorities, we always get paranoid. Ye kya ho raha hai, yaar? I mean, everywhere, you try to see the policemen and they're trying to stop ourselves. We'll get some long queues. Now, eventually, they also have, their own, perspective in mind that yes, today there is some threats, or some VIP movement is there, and we need to elevate the security. So we are the receiver, we are the consumer of that particular, entire situation which we come across for. Exactly the same thing in organization as well. When we try to elevate something, when we try to make something more stringent, we'll have to also see the employees and the consumer's perspective. It's their adoption. If they do adopt in the first instance itself, this will be success. Or else, we'll always get some frictions today, tomorrow, and we'll always be cursed across for. That's it.
So the whole supply chain from end to end. Yeah, thanks, Dharmesh, for that insight too. So from moving from employee awareness to now, technology. So, and this is for Dhaval. So in the world of application development technology, like, Scrum, Agile, DevOps, and then there we use different platforms like Eclipse, Jira, Jenkins, all CI/CD. So how do you balance between the speed and security in this world of, automation, I mean, kind of a pipeline kind of a world?
I think it's a very good question and relevant question that these all technologies are related to shift left, right? The mindset that we all have been hearing about it. Now, but just before that, just want to give a perspective as to, the maturity model of every organization in terms of application security might vary from organization to organization, be it regulated, be it not regulated. So I read somewhere, and I'll just give my some of the pointers over there. It is said that your maturity level of application security, if you are just doing the pen testing, that's level 0. Level 1 is something if you do SAST and DAST, static application security testing and dynamic application security testing. Level 2 is the next level is if you do software composition analysis, SEA. Typically that is for the open libraries being used or the open source code being used. That is something that is being talked a lot about. Then also the next is, I think, if you do the container security along with the SCA is the another level. And then you have the bug bounty. Also there is an API security assessment. The next level is if you do for your not just external facing APIs, but also the internal facing API security assessment. If you are able to discover it, that's fantastic. And if you are able to do the internal AppSec as well, that is really, really good. And then the last layer is something that, the bug bounty, not many organizations, they are very proactive in terms of going ahead and, asking the security researchers externally to do the attack and then give you the vulnerability. So I think these are some of the stages. So now you can map yourself as to, you may be doing 1, 2, 3, but then the last 2 are the most required areas of performing the assessments. I think API security is the most, with 5G we will only see. 5G is the entire nexus of API. I don't know how it would pan out. But anyway, so coming to his question, how do I catch up with the speed and agility where my DevOps team is continuously building the code and deploying the code? If you might have seen that DevOps ka loop, infinite loop. Security just sits in between the valley, right? And that's where we plug in the security tools in terms of the CI pipeline and the CD pipeline. So CI typically you do it these source code analysis and then the dynamic security analysis based on the appetite of the organization. So Twistlog and there's Aquasec. You can set your parameters out there, and that's how we tend to catch up in terms of the continuous development that happens. So there are some challenges out here, okay? There's practical challenges, some of you might have faced about it. Typically the SAST, the source code analysis, okay? The static source code analysis, when you do, there are a lot of false positives. The developers will go bonkers typically if the tool is not really good and it keeps on throwing the false positive. So eventually what happens is that your false positive list becomes, or the whitelisted list becomes quite bigger, and that has to be engineered, triaged over a period of time. Triage word is typically heard in the SOC environment, right? But triaging is also done in the application security as well with these tools along with that. So yeah, that's how one way is to catch up with the agile methodology. I'll just talk 2 minutes on the agile and DevSecOps. So agile, I'll say it's more of a shift left. DevSecOps is more of a shift left and shift right, both. Agile is more of between the requirement or the business development and the developer. Whereas the DevSecOps is between the developer and the, yeah, I think you said it right. What was that? Yeah, code implementation, sorry. So yeah, implementation team. So those are two different, so a lot of people here and even I was confused. So even I got my thoughts clear. I thought maybe I'll just give it to you. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Dhaval. That was a very good insight. So DevSecOps is more on the toolkits that we will put in place while doing the agile. So next is for Subramaniam sir. So while we are now managing, security and the speed of delivery through CI/CD with all the toolkits in place. So this also we are also forced, or the organization is also forced to use open source, softwares when you connect with a third party, because they are developed on, open source softwares, and you will also be forced to use those. And sometimes there are no tools to look at those kind of, security areas. So, and you are forced again to buy some new tools to look at those vulnerabilities that they might have. So how will you, balance between the compliance with minimal spends or control your investments?
See, compliance is paramount. Spends are okay, you can.
A bit up.
Yeah. Spends can be managed by proper justification, but compliance are paramount, and as a bank we are dealing with customers' money, and what is actually traveling in the wire is the money itself. So any compromise on that will have a death knell on the bank itself. So for us, compliance stands first. As regards open source, yes, we have, as banking sector, we have been using proprietary legacy applications for long, with regular upgrades coming from the OEM itself. Of late, we have been adopting open source for other periphery applications. But with the advent of fintech, we are now getting sucked into using open source for financial applications also. There is a risk, and we are evaluating the risk based on various parameters, and then taking a call whether to go ahead and what are the compensatory controls. One thing we see is with an open source, whether it has been there for some amount of time and it has been used widely, and there is the code available for us to review. Then what are the security documentation available? And how does that open source OEM, or you can call it open source provider, is able to respond to any security patches which are required? How often does he do it? Is there regular patching coming up? Whether the community support is there? whether the open source community provides adequate patches and support for that particular open source package. These are all considered, and then based on that a call is taken. And as you said, we are going gingerly into the open source, and we are seeing some benefits. Benefits are obviously from the cost side, that and proprietary also. If you are going for let's say proprietary software, we see that there are patches in that also, but we can be rest assured that we get the patches on time, because it's a question of reputation. But in the case of open source, there need not be such a reputational background for the OEM. So that way, banking, I would say that my colleagues in the banking are accepting open source, especially from the APIs and other fintech and other partner ecosystem. When it comes into contact with the banking ecosystem, we are kind of using the open source. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Subramanian sir. So this next question is related to development. I'm throwing it open to all the panelists. So we spoke software. Now we are moving towards API security, or APIs, which Dhaval rightly pointed out. So the attack surface has become very huge and very complicated in if you see the API world. So what are your views on this new shift to API world, and to look after the tools which some of the OEMs claim that I can do a API security, I can do a API monitoring. Okay, so any thoughts around it? And it's open thing.
Maybe I'll just give my views on the API security. I think we all should have bare minimum the API security standard. Okay. The standard should talk about the authentication methodologies, authorization using the tokens, and there are several parameters. Those things are available, but then the way the data is being exchanged, I call it APIs are like, the arteries and the veins. Data jata bhi hai, aata bhi hai. Kya data jata hai, wo kai baar not many people are aware. We are saying API is there, TLS is there, 1.2, that is enough. That is not enough, boss. Your data, you don't know what attributes the PII data might be exchanged with a partner, and they might even pull. Many a times the same API keys have been used for different merchants, which is a big risk. It should be unique for each of the handshaking partner on the other side, and it should be securely exchanged, and it should be rotated as well. So the standard will set a tone to the organization and to the developers, and not just to the developers, but also give that standard to your partners whom you're going to get the API integrated with. So typically, I think the standard should be the bare minimum that should start with and should be adhered. There are, of course, technologies, the API gateway management. It gives a lot of benefit, not in terms of managing the APIs, but it also gives in terms of there are security parameters also that can be set out there. And it should be, of course, protected with WAF, is my opinion. Yeah.
That's a very good input. And just to top on that, you also mentioned about the monitoring part. I remember listening to one of the podcasts, and over there, the essence of the application security, the PT that is done on the API. So I'm sure most of us does it, but that is also very paramount to ensure that we understand the gaps and the security risk. At the same time, from the monitoring aspect, we need to be aware of what that API calls does, right? What kind of a request would come in? What is the data size it's going to ask for? And based on those data sets, we should also be able to create rules on the WAF, more from an operation point of view. But those are the basic stuff that really helps. But it is important to make it a bit more fine-tuned, bit more curated, specifically create policies. That always really helps to understand from the risk point of view as well, that what are the calls coming in, and again what are the rules that are hitting on your WAF. So a very good first layer of defense.
Yeah, so very important and good point shared. Actually, just wanted to share one important point here. especially around the data that really flows out through the API channel. Recently, I read about some hacker or some researcher in good faith. He was trying to do a very interesting experiment using VirusTotal. So using VirusTotal as a C2 channel. Now, just imagine that you have a lot of VirusTotal traffic through your firewall going in and out, which is typically okay. But what if the adversary had an initial access and he is using the same technique for making VirusTotal as a C2 channel? So what he's going to do is he's going to take your dumps, posting, maybe he'll just encrypt or convert into base 64 or something, and push it onto VirusTotal comment section. And then, it's out. So you need not even need, to go to dark web and so on and so forth. Just a plain API route can really screw up things. So just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good insight, Weber, because the data and where we create a pipe for a legitimate reason can be misused or reused for, with the threat actors. So that's a very good input.
I think the hackers are more like artists. We should also have the artists rather than engineers. Application security artists.
Yeah, that's for sure. So one more point, I also think from API, we secure our APIs, we do whatever engineering, security engineering, and business engineering around it. But end of the day, it matters what endpoint it is touching, okay? If the endpoint itself gets vulnerable, then you do anything on the API, it goes for a toss. So like Dhaval and Prajit and Vaibhav rightly said that there should be monitoring tool, at least to start with tool like WAF, and then we can engineer the WAF to look at the API traffic. So thanks for that. Yeah. So next is for Weber, very interesting topic around us, which is since happening the COVID times, is that the HTTPS DDoS attacks, right? There are what we have seen in Q2 of 2022, around 26 million HTTPS DDoS requests were per second were detected and blocked, and we don't know what was not detected. Okay, so what are the countermeasures do you suggest to protect the endpoints, network, application in such situations where we see high number of 0 days coming in every day, okay? High number of APT groups targeting. So, and the way they are changing their, ways to do this, like Dhaval rightly said, they are artists sitting out over there.
So very wide and very legit question, very important question. And there are so many ways to break down this question and look at it. I will not go in trivials because everybody knows a lot about those trivial stuff that, okay, if we actually look at security from technical or procedural perspective, what I feel is, let's draw an analogy to just think about it. It's like a tree. The roots and the branches, flowers and fruits, etc. The branches, fruits, and flowers are all your endpoint solutions. Then we need to have web proxy to really make sure that, what ingress, egress goes out of it at web L7 layer. Network, NDR, and then, something beyond firewall, IDS, IPS, etc. The basic stuff. And then application security, WAF, and all that great stuff. But I would like to go to the root of this tree where basically we can equate couple of very important things I would like to emphasize over here is, at the root, the first thing, the foremost thing that really every organization I feel is catching up upon, and it's a very dynamic factor, is inventorying, knowing what you have. So inventorying not only the assets, but identities as well. So once you inventory, once you have the complete inventory, you know what you have, what you want to protect. So basically you need to know what are the crown jewels. And basically this I'm talking from a defender's perspective. So basically inventorying, knowing what you need to protect, and especially at information asset sides, data side, and identity. Identity is something that needs to be highlighted maybe once or twice or thrice, because identity is something that is being heavily used by attackers, because identity possesses the power to access. So identity layer becomes very important, and when we go from identity layer, anyways, I mean any LDAP solution, for example, Microsoft Active Directory for that matter, it needs to be protected in and out. Right from the segregation principle of least privilege, how do you manage your identities that talk to the AD in terms of the admin privileges, have to be taken care of. Segregation has to be there. And then let's come down to a very interesting topic, which is vulnerability management. Now, as Amit rightly said, that so many 0 days are coming up, and how do we really make sure that we are protected? We cannot make sure we are protected, but we can definitely make sure that we are on top of it in terms of detecting and responding to threats. Now, if you look at the pattern for last year or so, the vulnerabilities are, the class of vulnerabilities that are coming out are severe. Remote code executions, elevation of privileges, so that definitely means that you need to protect your peripheral assets, the exposed assets, because that is how the things are going to come in. And from adversarial angle, a lot of things that we put in as defenders, they don't care about it. What they care about is one hole through which they are going to get in and they are going to devastate. So that is why defense and depth is important. All said and done, we'll have to be very particular about defense and response piece, because we can definitely try putting in a lot of technology, tools, people, and when people, I say human angle is there. And as it was rightly said that, insider threats are of two categories. One could be, it could be a normal one who doesn't know about things, or it could be intentional. So definitely looking at the whole gamut of things, I think, we have to, the ball rolls down into the court of defending, effectively in terms of detection and response out of all these controls. Thanks.
Yeah. So that's really right. So just on a lighter note, what we saw, we do everything in the technology, right, from a security point of world. So the recently everybody have heard the news of physical DDoS, right? One of the fleet providers they use the business logic to do a physical DDoS, and they sent all the cars at only one junction in that country. So it's evolving, right? It's not only like technology security, it's going through the business logics also. So they are really thinking ahead of us.
No, that's right. Absolutely.
So yes, Prajit, to you. So with all the 0 days and different kind of attacks which are coming in, so how you really monitor your phishing URLs or adwares, malwares which might be targeting a particular organization? So what's your thoughts around it here?
I would also like to resonate with Vaibhav, because he really said, spot on by saying defense in depth. And that is one of the approach that I always follow at a personal level as well. Because that gives you a very good visibility right from the top to the bottom. So that is, where the attacker would come in from there till the end goal of a system. So, you talk about phishing. So again, we need to think from different angles as my view. I would look at the email security controls. I would also look at how are the detection rules in place, and am I enriching it enough with my TI, threat intelligence. That is one of the most important factor as well. Using situational intelligence. So for example, which I feel is one of the most important factor in threat intelligence. Situational intelligence is kind of a must, because an example would be, during COVID times, we saw a lot of COVID emails. I remember one of my US clients during December time is where the tax emails would flow in. So, and that point in time, what Damesh also mentioned, we need to take more the security awareness that point in time, and kind of also deliver that message, so it is more relevant. And at the same time, going deeper, I would also kind of look into the hardening of a system, because see, when I say defense in depth, I kind of see that, okay, fine, let's say the email security control did not work. Then basically, did my monitoring work? No, okay, fine, it came into the system. What about the privileges? What about the system hardening? Is that in place? That kind of so. Apart from that, I would also look at, so what I also do is, during purple team exercises, we ensure that there are some use cases, some attack scenarios specific towards the email security control, because that kind of shows my weakness as well, and maybe I kind of work on that. So what I'm trying to say is, I think we need to look from a complete broader angle, kind of go in depth and try to understand different layers. I think that really helps to kind of, I won't say completely mitigate, but at least limit the risk to a lot extent. That's the approach that I follow for each and every kind of threat landscape. That what we can try to do to kind of minimize the risk, have better detection in place. And from a preparation standpoint, right, just Vaibhav said, rightly said, response is also important. So tomorrow if something happens, do I have the playbooks in place? Do I have, or, nowadays people are talking a lot about SOAR. So is the remediation in place as well? Because with that remediation, it would do in seconds, to whom the emails were sent, how many people have clicked, how many, the email I need to kind of, pull it out. So all of this were done in seconds, whereas the analyst would do in maybe minutes, half an hour, and so. So I think the response is also important along with the monitoring aspect.
Yeah. Thanks, Prajit, for that. Yeah. So just follow up the question to Subramanian sir around the threat intel. So like we have regulators who are looking at us and looking if we have a threat intel or threat management kind of a process. Okay, we do have, okay, as a bank. But when we go beyond our geography, there are many partners who help us. Okay, and there was known incident which happened in recent past that one of the known partner which supports BFSI industry was compromised, and also when we look at those kind of areas, how you think that threat intel will help you improve the partner security posture or monitor partner security posture?
Threat intel is now a default by requirement kind of for all banks, right? So we get threat intel from different channels. One could be from our own RBI, we have IDRBT, then we have other service providers like RSA, IZO Logic, who give us threat intelligence regular basis, daily basis. Apart from that, we have our normal OEMs also who give threat intel, right? So based on this, we take some action in our proxy servers or on firewalls and things like that. We take some actions. But sometimes it is becoming a bit overwhelming because the number of threat intel which we get too high, number one, and there are some false positives also, in the sense that there are genuine IPs used by our customers which are marked as non-genuine, because of which we block it, because of which there are times in which a business has suffered because of taking direct recourse to action from threat intel. Although threat intel does give us what are the confidence level, what are the parameters, how strong it is, how strong the intelligence is. It gives us some input to it. But when you come to a security standpoint, you always try to err on the wrong side. So you try to block it at first, then see whether any business is impacted, and then take recourse action. As regards partners, obviously it is an input for us from threat intel regarding the partner. And even sometimes for DMARC and other mail service providers, we get some kind of threat intel that this particular mail server is acting as a relay. So don't correspond with it. It may leak your information. So things like that is there. So threat intelligence has become a mainstay in a bank's environment now. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the supplements. So next we'll come to the new jargon coming in as AI and ML, right? Many, even antivirus OEMs are nowadays saying we have AI ML enabled, okay? But we are still not at par with what it should do. But surprisingly, the threat actors or the cyber criminals are using AI ML as 100%. They run it 24/7, 365 days. Okay, so Prajit, so should AI ML, so what we have done from an InfoSec practice point of view, okay, we have put AI ML in a back seat, okay, let it learn and then we'll take a decision. So do you think AI ML should be now pushed to a first line of defense or second line of defense to quickly respond? And so what's your view on that?
With the AI ML, my experience would be a bit limited, I would say, but my personal views would be on that. I think you rightly said we are at a premature stage in the AIML. Yes, every endpoint has that. Acting it as a standalone, it does gives a lot of value. And again, there are a lot of false positives we need to fine tune. From a general standpoint, so what I have seen with other solutions, let it be SIM with an AI engine or an XDR that has an AI/ML engine. A few aspects I think that we need to kind of think through. The first and foremost is the telemetry. What kind of telemetry are you trying to ingest? What kind of logs are you trying to ingest? Does it even make value of it? Or is it, I want everything? Then comes the threat modeling. What kind of threats are you trying to protect? Again, what kind of threat landscape? Based on those telemetry, what kind of threat landscape can you try to kind of, build models, whether it's behavior, whether it's anomaly, that is something that really comes to my mind. I think what I would also, at this point in time, I would say that the AI/ML should be used, or those kind of solutions should be used more of an additional layer of security rather than directly kind of depending as first first line of defense is what I would say. So it is always good that we have our other strategies that we have placed along with this can be an additional layer where it kind of gives us more value. Even if we say that this port or this IP has been observed, never observed, it's for the first time, it should not be directly considered as a false positive. We need to still understand, okay, fine, why was it considered, and maybe work on that. And then, so until we have evaluated enough and we have effective metrics out of it, I think then we can take a decision whether it can be moved to the first line of defense or second line of defense.
Yeah, that's true. So we need to think through before placing AI/ML on whichever level that we have to. That's really good insight. So Vaibhav, to you. So again, back to AI/ML, how it should work and where it should be placed. So upon that, we have various technologies which are been implemented in an organization. So very specific to data, okay, or information. So we have DLPs of the world, we have data classification tools of the world, okay. Still, can AI/ML be used to see, detect or at least, make it visible that there is a data exfiltration happening? Given the point where the data is, the exfiltrated data or the threat actor is taking away data in a encrypted manner or kind of a steganography, So you can help us with your views.
Sure, Amit. So, data leakage, this is a very hazy term actually, unless your data is classified. We all know about that. But when we take this whole concept in terms of AI or ML, machine learning, usually what I have seen is machine learning is doing wonders in terms of classifier algorithms, or even if we go into RNN kind of thing where there is a reward or some kind of a negative reward, positive reward kind of thing based on user feedback. Such kind of machine learning models are predominantly being used as classifiers. But when it comes to DLP, data leakage, so basically when you have a DLP program, you usually know that what you do not want the organization boundary to, what you do not want to leave, what should not leave your organization boundary, right? Typically, it has to be readable. If something is not readable, and that comes from my experience, something that is not readable should be blocked, ideally. Of course, it's a very interesting question because the advent of AI/ML, we can actually, it's a research topic as well. Can you really classify encrypted data and build classifier models out of it to classify them whether it falls under some category? This predominantly would not work. That is what my opinion is, because unless you can read data, it will actually work on all the hashes or some kind of an encrypted outcome, which usually if encryption is good, you cannot really reverse know that what the data component was or what the raw text was. So that is why what I feel is for DLP, pure classification of data elements based on for encrypted data is not that enticing. But To extend this to a couple of other things. For example, I'll just take a very quick example. You have an EDR in your environment, and perhaps you have an FIM solution on your environment, and you have a SIEM. These both know what really got changed, what file really got changed, or what file really was created, what was it classified as, who classified it as that. All these four features, if you consider and try making a model out of it, and then if this particular file element, if it was compressed using XYZ algorithm, how would it look like? And if that goes out, definitely AIML can really help. So I think, taking a longer route definitely can help AIML here, or rather it can help DLP through AIML.
So lots of engineering efforts to be put in or thought through. So as you rightly said, I mean, you can see, we can't read the encrypted data, but we can see what channel it is using, what size it was, and now it has changed, and from a regular baseline. Yeah. So thanks, Weber, for that. Yeah. So coming back to application software, Dharmesh, this is for you. So while we are taking care of agility, speed, security, okay, people are moving to DevSecOps to really make that space or pace match. Okay, so what do you think would be the challenges that organization might face to adapt to DevSecOps? They will start slow, or they will not do it because of the cumbersomeness. So your views on that?
Sure. Here as well, I'll just narrate one irony which I've seen that, So there was a good sweet world of DevOps, okay? There were developers, the coders, programmers, all, living happily, and they're trying to code, program, or to do within their whims and fancies, okay? All of a sudden, we had the security issues, and somebody outside the domain said, you're doing wrong, you're doing this thing and that thing, We have spotted some issues in that, please fix that. So anything got to do in the DevOps, cloud room or whatever they have been there, they were doing with respect to their, prerogatives. And the security obviously was an outside domain. So they said, boss, you're doing something wrong. And the security guys always have to, face the aftermath of what the coders, my programmers have done there. Now, when we saw that there's a paradigm shift, and try to put across, second between, so DevSecOps, it's like, I don't think, how does it gel about for? I mean, obviously, I'm with due respect, the system is working very well in many industries. But, very simple analogy, you're trying to induce a checker in a maker's team, okay? There's a maker team, and you want to live them with harmony. I mean, this is something, I mean, even when in our own world, in what we try to do, a checker role, even in the CISOs and the security gamut, we face a real hard time. And when we say, we have Dev and Ops, and when you try to put across, the mandates of checker, obviously this is something which has to be there. Now, this is an irony, as I said. We are doing promising things as well, and so eventually this will work fine, and this is working fine where the security culture is quite stringent, The Dev and Ops team, they do acknowledge, they honor, they respect the fact that yes, we've been doing things in past was something Stone Age. What we are doing now, we'll continue what we are doing, but then we'll have to do in a more structured and secured way, as per what, the checker, Mr. Checker would, say across for and mandate across to us for. When these things works in a little more harmony, then I think DevSecOps would work perfectly fine. I've seen that in many, our partners where the DevSecOps model is worked across for. As a consumer, we have very less development in our organization. So we've been quite away about this model. We don't have DevOps as such. So DevSecOps is a little different, distant dream. But I've seen this in our partners, and that's what I said. The challenge is that welcoming security in a very orchestrated, gamut world is something where, the challenges are. And when you feel that, yes, now we are welcoming you, please dictate what are your terms and conditions, we'll follow according to that. So either the success story will start across for that. Now, this was a challenge we have faced it. Now, the good part is that this being working fine in, many big industries, the solution providers, the product developers, they're working fine. But the challenge again is that, how good the security teams being welcomed and induced for. And that's where the challenge is. I've seen that in many areas that we are building a DevSecOps teams right from scratch. Now you already have DevOps. You're trying to put across, induce security function within that particular gambit and make them work. And you still expect that a harmony should still prevail. What we had in earlier times, we should still have that across. So that's the challenge, I believe, as simple as that. I'm seeing that, we are working, we're going in upward trajectory mode. As far as, I lead off I meet a lot of my partners who are product developers. And there are a lot of startups as well, who are working in the similar fashion. But the fact remains the same that, when you have a checker seen near about, you will always have your eyebrows strong that this is something we will not be doing what we are doing so, and we'll always be, a route and will always get deflected for the fact that this is not secure or this is where the policy dictates for. So I think that's where, the challenge is we'll have to accept the fact that, the security culture has to make sure that please ensure that the checker role is quite important, and that's where you'll have to, make sure the entire, arena and works in the same realm what we were working earlier for.
Yeah, so that's right, Dharmesh. So, and also we need to make them understand that if you solve the issues in DevSecOps world, there would be very less or low level issues at the monolith world. Okay, so that is, I think people are adapting to DevSecOps due to that, because during go live there is no stoppage. During the DevOps time it is a stoppage. That's fine. They can still buy time. They can still plan their projects. Yeah. So thanks, Dharmesh, for that. So with this, there's a last but not the least, one more very generic question, and it's open to all. So due to immediate attack solution, do CISOs rely on automation to delegate, responsibility of threat intel on with whatever security compliances or policies that you have? So yeah.
I think partially, yes, we should leverage the automated tools, and the SOAR, we all know about it. But then completely, it shouldn't be blindly automated everything and anything. The automation, let's take an example, Mr. Subramanian gave that, there are many IOCs coming into the picture, and then how we can, should we block all of them or should we block some of them? Which ones to be blocked? Now maybe we can categorize in terms of, that's what the threat intelligence job is also, that, there should be based on the appetite of the organization, you should categorize it maybe high, medium, low, or you give a percentage of the IOCs, and then you decide that, okay, anything above 70 to 80% of threat, I will block it, or maybe something like that. So those automation will help many L1, L2 jobs to free up their cycles doing the same mechanical stuff. Also, there are automation to be use cases in terms of the SOC monitoring as well, where you can we can integrate with the security devices in the defense layer, and then you can take the mitigating actions. I think those we should leverage today. If we leverage that, that will be matured, and then we move on to the next layer. Yeah.
Very valid point, sir. Hi. So just wanted to add one thing in terms of threat intelligence and automation. So when we see threat intelligence, we can actually divide it into two categories very broadly. One could be active threat intelligence. One is passive threat intelligence. That is how I perceive threat intelligence. So passive threat intelligence is something that sir mentioned about. You're getting a feed of IOCs, and IOCs have a commensurate pyramid of pain along with it. So IPs are the most nastiest ones, because here you block the IP and that IP is reclaimed by someone else, and there is a tactic by offenders to use IPs. So IPs are not something great to be just automatically blocked. So automation has to be very careful about doing such things. But if you look into threat intelligence and automation, a very beautiful combination can come out if there is an active threat intelligence. For example, you're getting bombarded with emails which are say typo-spotted emails or lookalike emails, or you can actually implement something around NLP with your in-stream of emails or outstream of emails. I've seen tremendous value of outstream implementation for automation and threat intelligence when it comes to payment frauds or detecting payment frauds. So typically what happens is there is an email chain which starts with, say, your vendor. And typically that vendor, if he is small or he does not have his domain, he talks to you over Gmail or something. And then adversary actually mysteriously comes into that particular communication trail with a typo-spotted name or lookalike name. This can be beautifully found out by various ways of automating, and basically it has to do with lot of data analytics and retrospective data analytics onto your data lake or SIM, which not all SIM really helps. So that is a challenge of automation today, in my opinion. Security is a data problem, it is a data analytics problem, and we are all seeing that evolution. So yeah, looks like.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. So that and just like what's going off? Hello. Okay. Just like Vaibhav said, one step ahead, what we can do is kind of creating those automations, having those threat hunting, intelligence-based threat hunting kind of active, so that at least the L1, L2 kind of tasks are already being automated, and then you have more actionable intelligence directly, that something that you want to take care of or you want to look into at the same time. So I think yeah, automations are really helping, but at the same time, just like how everyone said over here, it all depends on the use cases as well, and to what extent.
Hello. Okay, so with this, we come to end of this interesting and exciting panel discussion that we had. So thanks everyone. Thanks Prajit. Thanks Vaibhav. Thanks Dhaval. Thanks Dharmesh, and thanks Subramanian sir.